is sponsored by our Heritage Village Activities Department. So I definitely want to give a big shout out and thank you to Linda Magura, Barbara Wilkinson, and Donna Farrell for helping everything run real smooth. And I also want to give a big thank you to Will Gebhardt and the technology team for setting everything up, and the tables and everything. Marcia Brooker is our wonderful captain of Focus. She's going to be recorded to be televised later. So, folks who was not able to come today, don't worry, it will be televised. The revolution won't, but this will. And so you can enjoy it on Focus TV. Also, of course, I want to thank the folks in the head offices, Jen Fenn and Brent Williams, for doing a lot of facilitating to make this possible. My name is Deborah Brody. I live in Condo 6. Very happy to be here, living with my mom. And I'm also a member of Sustainable South Florida. That's us right there. And we are a sort of a homegrown, natural conservation, ecology-minded group. The work that we do is learning together, supporting each other, supporting our community to build sustainable practices here in Southbury and in neighboring communities. So that includes Heritage Village, because Heritage Village is very much part of Southbury. And before I go on too much, just take a quick look at the various things that we do. Today's focus is going to be on reducing food waste. But I do want to introduce the team that came here, and first and foremost is our fearless leader, Mr. Chuck Liddy. He is our founder. And we also have Barbara Donahue. She's going to be helping out at the whiteboard because this program is your program. And so we're going to ask for input from you all to help us gather information together that we all can take home. We also have Joyce Schroede. She's also a Heritage Village resident, and she is our Master of Technology. And Dee Stradling, she brought all of the papers that you have there. And also Anne Marie she is our webmaster, actually. So at the end of this program, you will see a picture of our website. Definitely visit it. It's really nice. And also I want to introduce Frank Paulsen, who is also a Sustainable Southbury member. Thank you very much for your help. Frank and Chuck will be helping with the microphones. When folks are speaking, if you can't be heard, we want to be sure that we can get the mic to you so that everybody can be heard well. Okay. So without further ado, let us begin. I want to start with a really quick poll. These days, things have been changing a little bit, and how many of us are feeling pinched by inflation? Please go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to raise 2 hands, because that's about where I'm at right now.
Catch the number.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much, Mark.
I said I didn't catch the number.
Oh, okay. Okay, raise your all hands again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And he is 20. Next question, okay, kind of following up on that. How many of us are maybe keeping track of what we're spending, or maybe even keeping a budget? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And our last question, maybe is anybody possibly changing what you buy, or where you buy it, or maybe how often you might buy certain items? Oh, yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And B is 19. Okay, so we got some pretty good stats up there on the board, and I think we're all kind of in the same place. So let's see where we take it from there. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is food. I mean, there's a lot of other things we buy, but food is the topic today. And specifically, food that ends up in the trash. Okay? And what can we do to maybe save the food, save our pocketbooks, and maybe also help to save the planet as well? Because a lot of you may know, organic food type waste that we throw away turns into methane, and that leads to global warming. It is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, and I think we've all been feeling the heat. So it's all connected. The things that we're going to cover is we're going to share some stories, okay? We're going to talk about meal planning. We're going to talk about shopping. We're going to talk about how to store food in a way that maximizes its freshness and how long it stays fresh. We're going to talk about leftovers. We're also going to talk about food safety, because we want to make sure that the food that we eat is safe and good for us. And food dating. Okay, I'm not talking about Tinder, y'all. I'm talking about the things that they have on the food, and what does it really mean. And lastly, we really want to kind of think about the journey that food takes through our lives, from farm to table and beyond. And how can we make that a good journey and maybe a circular one. Lastly, of course, we're going to have question and answer. And this co-create thing, those feedback surveys that you hopefully all were able to pick up at the reception table, that is part of how we help create this program. We want this to be by the community, for the community, and that's our aim. So, speaking of stories, okay, our story is, have you ever bought food, really luscious, nice, but somehow before you could eat it, it went bad, didn't smell right, and you had to throw it in the trash? Has anybody had that experience before? Oh. Okay, well, so we're all in the same boat, right? Yes, indeed. All right. Would anybody like to share one particular story that's memorable to you that you'd like to just share with the group? Don't be shy, y'all. Just raise your hand. Oh, okay. All right. So we've got a little stage fright going on here. I'll just share one. I like to use cilantro in my cooking, and there is a recipe that I have, which I really enjoy, which is actually kind of fish soup. And you need the cilantro to make it taste good. And so I'm there, and I'm getting everything ready, and I'm going into my refrigerator, I pull out the drawer, and I pull out the cilantro, and this is not going to work. And so not only did I have to throw that away, and I don't know about y'all, but where I buy cilantro, it's pretty expensive. Okay, so I was feeling a little bit of pain right there. But I also, that I couldn't have the soup the way I wanted it. It was still edible, but it didn't taste as good. So it's an issue.
I actually have a story.
Please.
I got the bags of salad already made, and I think, oh, and I don't. And then the next time something happens, and I don't. And about 5 days later, it's all turning green and slimy in the bag, and I have to throw it out. And that's, I was thinking, when you asked the question about meat, ham, or anything like that, she said luscious. I really don't like tomato salad. I like it when someone else makes it, and those bags of salad just get to jump on me every time.
Yeah, excellent story, and I really identify with it. Thank you so much. What's your name?
I'm Carol.
Nice to meet you, Carol. We got one more? All right.
I have a voice issue, so I can speak up. But
Come to the mic. Perfect.
do you hear me?
I think so.
I don't think
Yeah, help make sure it's on.
I pressed it off, so I'm the blame. There you go.
Thank you. Now,
Yes.
yes, okay, great.
That one, that's it.
Great. I, in an effort to save money, started getting Hello Fresh. And I've never done anything like this. And they give for one person quite a bit of food. So I made the green peppers. And they're supposed to be for 2 people, but there really was enough for 6 nights. And I had to throw 2 of these green peppers out. I was sad, but, you know, I couldn't eat them by the time I got to them. They looked a little moldy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Tell me your name.
Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. Great story. My hands got raised how often it happens that food that was perfectly good when we bought it has to bypass our tummy and go straight to the trash. And in fact, when the FDA studied food use in the United States, they found that 25% of the food that Americans purchase doesn't get eaten, it goes to the trash. And that is literally like tossing 1 in 4 of your grocery bags straight into the bin. So what we're going to try to do here is change that story. And so my question to you all is, what's on your plate this week? And how many of us like to plan ahead what we're going to eat during the week? How many folks like to plan their meals ahead? Okay, let's take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. So the next question for y'all is, when you're planning, how many days ahead do you like to plan? So we'll start with planning 1 or 2 days ahead. How many folks like to plan 1 or 2 days ahead? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anybody else? Okay, so 4. And how about, how many folks like to plan maybe 3 or 4 days ahead? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, 6. Okay, here's the big one. Does anybody like to plan a whole week ahead? Like plan out the whole week's menu? Okay, oh, look at this. Y'all are planners. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So wait a minute, which one won? Who has the most votes?
The week.
All right. So you are folks who like to plan ahead. And how many folks do we have planning all in all?
17.
17. Okay, terrific. So let's talk about how we plan, okay, and how we can help ourselves. The first thing that we'd like to suggest, and I'm sure you folks, a lot of you are doing this already, is you start by shopping inside your house. Shop in your cabinets in your pantry, shop in your refrigerator, shop in your freezer, okay? This will give you an idea of what is available to eat already, and that will get you started on thinking about what you want to eat through the week. And then this really cool chart here, this is available on the website myplate.gov. That link is on your papers there. And it's kind of a handy way to write down your meals for the week. It's got each day of the week, and it's got different meals, including snacks, by the way. And you can write those down there. And then don't forget to bust out your recipe book, because about the worst thing that I can imagine when I'm cooking is I'm going through and I'm missing one ingredient. One ingredient that I didn't buy because I didn't check my recipe before I went shopping. So that's a big one. And also, I'm sure we all want to think about our schedules. Okay, some days you're busy and some days not so much. And when you think about the schedule, the day that you're busy, that's the time to plan for having leftovers. Okay, so it's like cook once, eat twice. That's my favorite motto right there. And after you've done all this, then you can start to make your grocery list. Okay, and I do want to share something that I learned from my sister-in-law, which is that when she is going through the week and she's just using stuff and she says, oh, it looks like we're getting low on eggs. Oh, it looks like we need some more cereal. And she writes that down on a piece of paper right when she sees that she needs it. She keeps that piece of paper on the kitchen counter or up on the refrigerator. And so by the time it's time to go shopping, her list is almost made. And I like to, I see somebody who likes to do that too. All right. So that's a very handy thing. And then the last thing just to think about is when we're planning what we're going to buy, think in terms of some stuff is fresh, Some stuff is frozen or can be frozen, and some stuff is shelf stable. You can keep it in your pantry, okay? Because you don't want to have everything being fresh at the same time, and then you've got to eat it at the same time before it goes bad. So here's another planning aid, and I just got to ask, how many folks have seen this picture of a plate with the different types of food groups? Okay, so you all are familiar with it. That's a very helpful tool for planning your portions. And we know that portion management can be good for our health, make sure that we get kind of the right amounts of each kind of nutrient. But it can also help us reduce what's called plate waste. Now, plate waste is the thing, when I was younger, my mom said, don't let your eyes be bigger than your stomach, okay? And then you can't finish what's on the plate, but nobody else can eat it. And most folks don't really want to put it aside and then eat it later, so it goes in the bin. So if you're using this portion control, that can help reduce or even eliminate plate waste. So this website, myplate.gov, they have a lot of different resources which are really helpful. In addition to your healthy eating, portion management, they also have recipes, which I always like some recipes. And then the part which I really am interested in lately is healthy eating on a budget. Because there's a lot of foods that are really nutritious and delicious, but they're mighty expensive. So what can we substitute where we get the same nutrition, and they got recipes, guys, so we can make it tasty and delicious, but we may be saving a few dollars, okay, or sometimes even more. So this portion of the website, it's interactive, okay? For example, you can plug in your zip code, and it will tell you where close by to you are food pantries or food banks, okay? We're probably already familiar with our Southbury Food Bank, I take it. There's also the Calvary Food Pantry out on Kettletown Road. I didn't know about that. I just saw the sign out front in the activities department there. But this website will give you resources for that. And also where farmers markets are at and how you can access SNAP benefits and things like that. So it's very useful. So that's a very good resource to have in your pocket. And one more that I want to introduce to folks is from SafeTheFood.com, their so-called Guesstimator. Now this Guesstimator is really handy if you're going to have a party or family over or something and you're planning a nice meal, but it's going to be more people at the table than you usually are used to cooking for. So like, how do we figure out how much we're going to buy for this? We want to be sure that there's enough food, everybody feels satisfied and full, but we don't want to get too much. So this is terrific. You plug in how many people are coming, what kind of eaters they are, hearty eaters, medium eaters, small eaters, how much leftovers you want, what your dishes are, and it will plug out for you how much of each thing to get. So it's very, very helpful. And they have hints and tips and recipes as well. So let's, I'm getting to running out of time here. All right, so let's talk about tips that folks use when you're shopping to help you shop in an efficient way, in an economical way, saving time, saving labor, and saving money. Any tips that folks would like to share with each other? Just raise your hand. Yes?
Buy in season.
Buy in season, okay, good one. Yes?
Eat before you go shopping.
Eat before you go shopping, why not? Okay. Any others?
Yes.
Yes?
15% off at New Morning Marketplace at Organic Store in Woodbury on Tuesday.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. So 15% off at New Morning Organic Store on Tuesdays. Thank you.
For
Other tips?
with your green share card.
Oh, yes, green share card, yes.
Buy store brands instead of name.
Oh, good one. Buy store brands instead of name brands, yes.
Take a list and stick to it.
Take a list and stick to it.
Sorry.
Okay. So folks have already named most of the ones that I already had on my list. I'm just going to take a quick look at this one. Be wary of promotions and be wary of impulse buys and bulk buys. Now, that's kind of a hard one with bulk buys, because I don't know if folks ever used Costco in the past, or they do so now, or other kinds of bulk merchants. If you're going to buy in bulk, be sure that you can store it properly. Shelf-stable stuff is pretty good. Stuff that you can freeze is pretty good, but don't buy fresh stuff or perishable stuff. That kind of runs into trouble. Okay, so speaking about storage, okay, let's kind of look at how we store our food. Okay, probably everybody's very familiar. These dry, fairly stable things, you want to have them in a cool, dry place, okay, away from sunlight, and with good ventilation. Taking a look at things like your melons, your fruits, okay, tomatoes, avocados, those kind of things. Those are good to store at room temperature, like on the counter, until they're ripe. But once they're ripe, either eat them or put them in the fridge, because otherwise they can turn quickly. A little note about onions and potatoes. I think we talked about this with the focus groups. Onions and potatoes don't play well together. The onions make potatoes go bad, and the potatoes make the onions sprout. So don't store them together. Believe it or not, yeah, they got a thing going on. Your root vegetables, consider putting them in a dark place. Again, my sister-in-law, my family's kitchen genius, she likes to store her root vegetables wrapped in newspaper in a kitchen drawer, okay? But make sure that it's away from the stove, because you don't want it to be warm. So let's also take a look at our refrigerator. Now, yes, of course, my refrigerator is just like that. Okay? Exactly like that. But the main thing about this is you want to avoid overpacking. Okay? Now, I always thought, the more stuff you put in the refrigerator, they'll keep each other cold, it's good. Not exactly. Okay? You have to have room for the air to circulate through it, because it's the cold air that chills everything down. Okay? Another really good idea is check your fridge often. Okay? You don't want to have something way in the back that you forgot about. As a matter of fact, it's a good idea to rotate your stock. Stores do it, we can do it too. About the containers, I don't have containers like that, sorry guys. However, we probably do have a bunch of different containers. Main thing is that you can seal it, okay, has a good solid lid, and if it's not clear and see-through, label it. Okay, we don't want to have mystery meat or any other mysteries in the refrigerator. Feng shui for your fridge, avoid contamination. Now, we know that contamination between different foods, it can create, bacteria that's bad for our health. But those same bacteria also make food go bad. So we want to be careful with this. One thing to do is you want to separate, okay, your meats, okay, and those kind of, I would say, dead animal stuff, from things like bread. Okay, and fruit. So it's really best if you use different surfaces or different utensils to prepare them. The other thing is about your refrigerator is your safe zone. You want to be sure that the temperature is between 34 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want it to go above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I don't know, Barb, do you want to share with us what you learned from your
refrigerator was actually 10 degrees colder than the top of the refrigerator. It was kind of surprising, but your meats, because you also don't want them dripping on anything, meats should always go. Anything that has to get cooked to a certain temperature should go on the bottom. Your jellies and jams can go on the top. And the warmest part of your refrigerator is the refrigerator door. So no putting your eggs on the door.
Why do they put the egg finger on the door then?
I don't know. We'll have to talk to the manufacturers about that.
That's the place you put your eggs in.
Yeah, they suggest that you don't.
We have a question out back?
Yes.
So the question is, where is the best place for the milk? Is that correct? So, probably one of the top shelf, I wouldn't put it in the door. I think the door is a little bit too warm for milk. What I do with my milk is I put it on the top shelf, and what I put in the door is things like butter is okay, because I don't know if folks are familiar, but a lot of people store butter at room temperature. They have those kind of special containers where it's got cold water and then the butter is on the inside inner container, and that seems to work okay. And the other thing is things like condiments, salad dressing, stuff like that can go, pickles and stuff can go in the door, but the rest of it put in the body of the refrigerator. Warm myself up here. Okay, can you all still hear me okay? All right. So the other part of the refrigerator that has been a big mystery to me is the crisper. How many folks have actual crisper doors where you can control the humidity? Okay, because I don't. Okay, mine has no little dial, it doesn't have a little lever, so I can't control it. But if you can, okay, you have a control where you can set it to high humidity or low humidity. And how that works is that actually the drawer has a little window in it. So low humidity is that the window is completely open. And high humidity is that the window is completely closed, okay? And a little tip, don't try to set it like medium humidity. That doesn't do anybody any good, either high or low. And if you have two drawers with those controls, you can set one is high humidity and the other is low humidity. And then if you don't, like me, my drawers are just drawers, that's all they are. But they don't have windows, so that's default high humidity. So stuff that I want to store at low humidity, I put on the shelf, okay, because the shelf is open. All right, so what do you store where? In your low humidity drawer is where your fruits go, okay? And in your high humidity drawer is where your veggies and your greens go, okay? The only exception to this is apparently strawberries and watermelon don't do too well if they get dried out, so it's okay to store them temporarily in the high humidity drawer. Just don't leave them there too long. I got a question. Go ahead.
The tomatoes. How about tomatoes? Where do you put them when you have to put them in the fridge?
They should probably go in the low humidity drawer because technically tomatoes are fruits. Yep.
Stems up.
Stems up. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's go further. And we're going to introduce you to Ethel, ethylene gas. And who is she and why is she important? Ethylene is a gas which is produced by mostly fruits that helps them to ripen. Okay? And some fruits and vegetables produce ethylene gas and some are very sensitive to it. And if we store the ones that produce ethylene gas with the ones that are sensitive to ethylene gas, then the ones that are sensitive are going to go bad faster. So we want to be careful about how we do this. We want to separate the foods that produce ethylene from the ones that are impacted by it. So which is which? We've got a nice list here. And this is also from, actually this is from University of California, San Diego, but you can also find it on the links that, on your resource sheets there. The ethylene producing foods, if you take a look down this list, they're all fruits. Okay? And so which drawer do these ones go in? Shout it out, guys. Low humidity, yes, okay. And the foods which are impacted by ethylene is your veggies, except for the bananas, but we're not going to put bananas in the refrigerator anyway. So which drawer do the foods impacted by ethylene go in? High humidity, right. So the crisper drawers kind of help us to segregate these, but some of them you may be storing on your counter, like if you're waiting for them to be ripe. Just don't mix the two groups with each other. So we've got a bunch of different produce here. We're going to kind of run through them real quick. Every single one of these is on the SaveTheFood.com and StopFoodWaste.org websites, which you have the links to on your sheets there. So we're just going to look at them really quickly. Different tips for different produce. As an example, for the asparagus, one thing that I learned was take off the rubber band. Okay, and I think about, gosh, if I had rubber bands around my feet, I wouldn't feel too great either. And you can put them in a jar of water, about an inch of water, and that will keep them good and fresh. Be aware that asparagus gets tough if it's not chilled. So as soon as you bring it home, put it in the fridge. Don't let it stay out. Some more produce tips. I found out the hard way that beans go bad faster than I thought. But a really interesting one about your celery is if you wrap it up in tin foil, okay, just wrap it all up nice and tight, it keeps a lot longer than if you leave it just in its own packaging. In general, you want to avoid plastic packaging for any of the stuff that you're keeping in your refrigerator. For one thing, the plastic packaging, it can make condensation, it traps the ethylene gas, it does a lot of things which are not good. So you want to wrap things in, old newspaper or other kind of paper brown bags, or even like cloth mesh is better. Yes, question?
Are silicone bags just as bad?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to have to Google it. But that's a really good question. That's a really good question. So that's something that we will want to research to put into this as the presentation is evolving. Thank you so much for that. So, we already talked a little bit about tomatoes, okay, and bananas. We kind of know that they make other things get ripe. One way to stop your bananas from getting ripe too fast and from making other things next to them get ripe too fast, the place where the ethylene gas comes out is right at the top of the bunch. So if you wrap that up in saran wrap, you can kind of retard them from getting ripe too fast. And we talked about your potatoes and your onions. But this year, let's talk about salad, because we just had the point lifted up, Carol, about getting those ready-made salads and they go bad easily. Okay, I think if it's mixed already with meat-type things like eggs or ham and stuff like that, that's very vulnerable. But if it's just your salad greens, one tip that you can use: take off the lid, cover it with paper towel, put the lid back on, and then flip the whole thing over. And that paper towel will be absorbing the moisture. Because I don't know about y'all, but I've often, by the time I get to the bottom of that plastic box, they're all kind of slimy. And that's a pity. So, So those are just some, the dragonfly lighting on the water, a few tips about different products, but there's a whole wealth of information on those links. Really encourage folks to take a look. So let's also take a look at our freezer. Okay, we've looked at room temperature, we've looked at refrigerator, freezer. First thing that I really want to hone in on is the safe zone. Okay, what was the safe zone for the refrigerator? Do we remember how many degrees? 34 to 40, yes, right on. So for your freezer, it has to be 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That's Fahrenheit, y'all, not centigrade. Okay, it's not 32 degrees Fahrenheit, it's 0 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're above 0 degrees Fahrenheit, your food will not be keeping fresh the way you think it is. So again, Barb, thank you for the big, good tip about using a thermometer to check your appliance temperature. It really makes a difference, especially in the summer. You know, sometimes the compressor doesn't work as well as we think it is, so good to be able to check that. A couple of tips. Again, here we have this lovely, nice, neat freezer. Mine looks just like it, doesn't yours? Aspirational, right? It's aspirational. You want to think in terms just like the refrigerator, and by the way, your crisper too. You want to have airflow. Okay, you want to have room for the air to go through to keep things cold. You want to have things labeled. Okay, and especially for freezer stuff, date it, yeah? Because sometimes it's back from the Pleistocene. And a good tip is when you're freezing stuff, freeze it in bags that will have enough for a meal. Okay, and freeze it flat, arrange it flat, because that makes it so much easier to defrost. If you ever tried to defrost a whole bunch of chicken drumsticks that was all put together, it takes forever. And we definitely encourage make robust use of your freezer because you can do so much with it. You can put leftovers in there, so you're not eating the same thing day after day after day, but you're still saving yourself cooking. It's almost like your own TV dinner. And some things freeze well that you might not imagine. Things like breads and baked goods, okay, berries we know, but what about sliced fruit? Okay, we're coming up right now on peaches and plum season, and you know, sometimes there's a whole lot for not too much money, and it's so tempting to buy it, but then what are we going to do? You know? So one thing that you can do is you can slice it up, or you can make wine, but you can slice it up and freeze it in a nice flat bag, and then next time you want to make something with it, maybe a cobbler, okay, maybe a compote, okay, it's right there. It's right there. Another thing that I'd like to just introduce to folks is you can freeze your herbs. I did not know this, okay? Full disclosure, my sister-in-law went to Culinary Institute of America. This is why she got all them tips. So what she does is she harvests her herbs because she grows them in pots. She harvests them. There's way more than she can use, but she gets them all cleaned up, washed up, chopped up, and then she puts them in ice cube trays. And then pour a little water over it, and she puts them in the freezer, and it's there, ready to flavor her soups, her sauces, her casseroles, whatever. You can also make your herb butter. Okay, and I tried that once, it's real good. Summer's a good time to do that because the butter gets real soft. And so you can mix those herbs up in it, form it into a little log, put it in the freezer, and then you have it for even until the fall. So, good way to use the freezer. And speaking of, okay, the freezer is ideal for leftovers, okay? You can freeze your stuff for a future week. Or if you have leftovers from the night before, you can just heat and eat. It's a little convenience, always nice. And you can also use leftovers for your stews and your casseroles, fried rice guys, sandwiches and wraps. And those are really good ways to eat leftovers that doesn't feel like leftovers because you've transformed it. It looks different. And it may take, yes?
I have purchased a thing that looks like an oversized ice cube tray that'll take 1 cup or a half a cup, and you can put your soups in, and you get a brick of your soup, and then you just can offload it into a bag after it's all frozen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
And I also do it with oatmeal. I take the half a cup and I cook the oats, and then put that in the smaller portion. And they're made out of the silicone, and which will absorb moisture or flavors and stuff. So I usually decant them into a bag.
Oh, good idea.
Your name? Your name?
Oh, Margot.
Thank you, Margot.
Thank you, Margot.
Yeah, so I don't know about you all, but I'm really riffing on all the contributions that we're getting from everybody. I mean, this presentation is just growing just by being here. I just want to thank everybody for everything that you brought forward. So we do want to take a quick look at food safety. Now, I think we've kind of touched on this already, but since we're talking about freezing our food, what are the ways to defrost frozen food? There are 3 ways to defrost it safely, and none of them is to defrost it in the sink. Or the counter. Oops. So my personal favorite is I like to defrost them in the refrigerator because that way I know they're not going to get above the safe temperature. The refrigerator, sorry guys. The refrigerator will keep them at a safe storage temperature. The only problem with defrosting in the refrigerator is you've got to think ahead. You've got to, sometimes have to take it out 2 or 3 days in advance. So when I forget to do that, I have 2 options. One is I can use very cold water, and the other is I can use the microwave. Now, for very cold water, one of the pitfalls for me is that the food has to be wrapped in some kind of hermetically sealed container, like, unbroken plastic. And usually my food is not like that, so I end up opting for the microwave. But those are the 3 ways to defrost your food safely. And I'd like to, again, poll you guys, because you're full of wonderful ideas, for some other tips to make sure that the food that we are serving is safe from when we bring it home to when we put it in our mouth when we eat it. Anybody?
Feed the cat first.
Feed the cat first, I like that one. The cat might not, but
Just kidding.
say again?
So just kidding.
Oh yeah, okay, just kidding. Yes.
I have an older neighbor that when there's my husband and myself, and very often there's a little bit too much. And that's the kind that used to end up growing stuff in the back of my refrigerator. And so what I did was I asked her, I said, would you mind if I give you, because I like to cook,
Oh, God
my
bless.
one portion that's left. And so she's happy. I've been doing this for 3 years now. She doesn't mind being nice. Instead of being the garbage, she loves it and she eats it and appreciates it.
Thank you very much for that one. I have to say, I also have a neighbor like you. And she also likes to cook and she shares like that. And I think that's one of the most wonderful ways that we can address food waste and make food waste turn into sharing and creating community. So thank you very much for lifting that up. Any other ideas about food safety? How do we handle our food safely?
Separate cutting boards for meat and vegetables.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Separate cutting boards for meat and vegetables. Yes?
A food thermometer.
A food thermometer. Excellent. Yes, indeed. Any others? Okay, let's take a look and see if there's any that might be able to be added. The USDA has a very good and very comprehensive website on how to handle food safely, and they'll even talk about what is the right temperature for different kinds of foods. It's actually an interactive site, so you can say, okay, I want to cook X. You type that in, and it will tell you what is the safe temperature to cook it at. But yes, it really boils down to hot food hot, cold food cold, cooking time, cooking temperature. Make sure your surfaces are clean. Okay. Also, wipe up spills right away. Don't let that stuff fester, right? And always, retired nurse over here, wash your hands. Okay. Retired mom over here, wash your hands. Okay. But what about this 2-hour rule? What's that about? If you have food that is cooked, or you have uncooked food which is perishable, okay, that should not be stored at room temperature, don't let it sit at room temperature for more than 2 hours. If it's going to be sitting out longer than that, you have to find some way to either chill it down or heat it up. What if you're eating outdoors? Okay, we've got the summer coming up, we've got 4th of July, we've got picnics, we've got barbecues, and sometimes that temperature gets mighty hot outside. So for the high temperature outdoors, you don't want to have food laying around for more than an hour. Okay, either eat it, put it in a cooler, put it in some kind of a hot storage, or put it back in the refrigerator, because that's actually where the real danger comes of food going bad, is when the temperature is high. They say 90 degrees. I'd say anything above 80 or 85, you want to be careful. So these are just kind of generally safety tips. Really love the tips that folks have shared as well. Yes?
I don't know if it says 1 hour, but coming home from the grocery store, I got those thermal bags to put all the cold things in. I think in the summer it's particularly helpful.
Yes, very good idea. Those thermal insulation bags, that can buy you a little bit of time because it will keep the cold food cold and the hot food hot. Very excellent indeed. Okay, so we're back to our quick poll. We're going to be talking about dates. How many folks are not 100% sure about what the date on the food label means? Anybody with questions about the dates? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And the other one, how many folks have maybe sometimes thrown out food because it was past the date on the package? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, folks, we are not alone. It turns out 84% of consumers or people at least occasionally discard food because it's near or past the date on the label. And indeed, 37% of folks always or usually discard food which is close to or past the date on the label. So that lets us know that the labeling and understanding what the label means is really important to help us prevent food waste. So let's take a look. The labels that we usually see is best if used by, sell by, or use by. And let's break that down. Best if used by is basically about quality, not safety. That date is the manufacturer's best guess at how long that food will stay at its peak quality. Okay? But after that date is passed, the food is still safe. It just may not be at its peak of freshness and deliciousness. The sell-by date. I don't know if folks have seen, like on meats, okay, they have the sell-by date, or sometimes on baked goods. So that is for inventory management. That's actually to tell the store employees what to do with this thing. They want to make sure that that stays in the front so that people pick it off first, and they maybe want to put a sale sign on it so people will buy it soon. And even, I don't know if folks have any experience with this, but you go to the supermarket and you see a piece of package of meat, it's clearly been re-wrapped. How many folks have seen that? Okay? And that new date that is on it is different from the original sell-by date. They also do this with baked goods. So, what you're looking at, again, this is not about safety, it's about inventory management. The only label which is required and regulated in the United States, which is called use by, is for baby formula. So that's the only one where they have, how do I say it, they have specific standards so that if it says use by, you need to use it by then, because after that it's not legal and not safe. So anything else, pretty much, the safety is best judged by smell, appearance, taste, and also how it feels. And to me that feels, kind of cool. We have a full suite of highly sensitive measurement devices, right? Standard equipment, okay? The nose knows, the eyes knows, the mouth knows, and the fingers knows, okay? Is it good or not? We're almost at the end, just kind of recapping a little bit our general tips. I feel like everybody is already, so I'm encouraging to continue to be aware of how much food you might be throwing away, okay? And when we're about to throw something away, we can maybe take a step back and say, wait, how could I use this, okay? That little half cup of quinoa, okay, sharing it with your neighbor is awesome, okay? Or you could also put it in a little salad for lunch the next day, change it up a little bit. that Parmesan rind, that ain't nobody gonna eat it, but sure could make a nice soup. So think of ways to do that. And also track what goes into the trash, because you may find out there's certain items that you tend to, not use it up fast enough. So then how can you modify how much you buy or how you use it, how you store it, so it doesn't get in the trash. And progress is satisfying. An average family of 4, they say, let's put it this way, an average family of 4 could save $1,500 a year by preventing food waste. Now, me and my mom is only 2 people in the household, but I don't know about you, my mom and me could have a lot of fun for $750. Share or donate food before it expires. Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful thought. And just want to leave folks with one last idea about recycling food scraps. Now, we don't have a program for that here in Heritage Village yet. We could, if folks were interested. But any food waste could be food for the soil. And if there were some way to recycle it so that it could be composted, maybe give food scraps, get back compost, put it in your flower pots. And anybody here have a plot at the river garden? Any gardeners here? Okay, all right. So you see where I'm going with this. There's a lot of things that we can do to turn trash into treasure. So that's all, folks. I usually don't make up more salad than I can eat in 1 or 2 meals. That's number 1. And number 2, keep the salad dry, so don't dress it until it's in your bowl that you're going to eat. That's usually what I do. But either a glass or a plastic bowl, which you can cover, is fine. I think we all kind of need to accept that salad probably doesn't keep long term. So you want to manage how much you buy. Yeah. Yes?
I have a friend who's a chef, and he actually washes all of the lettuce that he will use for 2 or 3 days. And he puts it in a salad spinner to get all of the water out of it. And then he puts it in a plastic bag with a piece of paper towel on the bottom. And it's absolutely amazing that romaine lettuce doesn't get soggy or it doesn't get the brown spots on it. And you can eat it for 3 or 4 days.
That sounds like a great idea. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's I think paper towel is really the key. So in the bottom of the bowl, you put a piece of paper towel, because I've been doing this for probably 6 months now since I learned that paper towel in the bottom of the plastic container. It's amazing. I have not thrown out any salad.
Yeah.
I have not thrown out celery since I've started to wrap it tightly in tinfoil. That will last a month. That was my most thrown out vegetable. And asparagus, instead of having to use the whole bunch, putting it in a glass with an inch of water in the refrigerator. Now my husband and I, will make a third of it, and it will last. So these things definitely help.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Other questions? Yes.
If I buy iceberg lettuce, I don't put it in the water.
The iceberg, you have trouble with the iceberg lettuce, doesn't keep? Okay. Suggestions about iceberg lettuce? Same?
Paper towel. Put it in, line the bottom. Put it on top of paper towel in a bowl.